Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Alan Barry Labakan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. Today, it's Sunday, January the 15th. And what I want to talk about today is we're coming into a new week, and we've got a bunch of companies that have pending news that could come out anytime. So I'm going to talk about those companies. Got a couple of interviews upcoming for the week and working on some more. So I'll close the show off with those interviews coming up. In the meantime, let's get into what something I'm looking at today, which is our friendly trend with the US dollar. It's definitely looking pretty troubled. I think what's causing that trouble, as I've mentioned in shows for the last couple of months, is that it looks like the Fed is getting close to the end of their interest rate hikes. Past shows, I've given you plenty of reasons, such as the U.S. real estate sales are dropping dramatically, inversion of yield curves. The latest thing is that just on the docket today, U.S. will hit its debt limit on Thursday and start taking steps to avoid default. Yellen warns Congress. Sometimes I think these debt limits are kind of silly when all they do is just to get rid of them each time they reach them. So what's the sense of having them? The process just keeps on continuing. Print more money, print more debt, and keep the balls in the air as best they can. But you've got a couple issues in Congress with the I think a fractured GOP. You've got a group there, the rebellious MAGA group. That's making up a more significant portion of the GOP. You got more moderate, but still conservatives that want to institute some rules, if you will, on the debt increase. You've got a group that are probably in the moderate conservative side of things, which really fragments the GOP. They do have a slim majority, but with such a fragmented group, I don't know, how that's going to play out. If I were the speaker, that they put me through so much trouble trying to be the speaker, I would probably, call their bluff as soon as I could to see if they're willing to split the vote and hand over the power to the Democrats. The Democrats seem to be pretty united. So who knows what's going to happen? When different votes come up, but I'm certain that they will increase the debt limit, because politicians, whether you're on the left or the right, they like spending money. That will never change as far as I can see. But I think that's what's got the currency market a little bit worried lately, really starting out 2023 in a tough position. You've got a death cross has happened now. The 50-day moving average is moving down at a quite significant slope as it goes through the 200-day moving average. I think it's just a matter of time before the 200-day moving average starts to roll over, and we see more downward pressure on the US dollar. The fundamental reasons are quite strong. Housing sales is dropping. The yield curves are suggesting that we're headed towards a significant economic slowdown. And now you got them fighting over the debt limits. It's no wonder that the US dollar is shaping up to have a very bearish January effect. And I think that's a good indication of where the rest of the year is going. With this slope of the US dollar decline, usually when you see that sort of stuff, you you'll see it go quite significantly under the 200-day moving average and start pulling the 200-day moving average down, which is exactly what I anticipate is going to happen, simply because the fundamentals are so strongly against the US dollar at the moment. Gold, on the other hand, is doing very well. Here's the gold chart. It's going through a golden cross that just happened in the last couple trading days, now trading aggressively above the 200-day moving average and the 50-day moving average. Again, you're seeing a similar angle that it's going up is the inverse of the pace that the US dollar is going down. You know, and that's not the only reason I'm bullish on gold. You know, it's one of the key reasons is it's a monetary instrument. So when every currency throughout the world is doing everything they can to sort of devalue and print as much debt as they can, I think you'd be much better off, well, you certainly have been since November, owning gold than practically every other currency out there, including the US dollar. I love to see it going through a golden cross in early 2023. It's setting up for a spectacular January effect. I think that the big institutions out there are positioning themselves and starting to want more gold. The central bankers of the world are doing the same thing. And I just think we're set up for a strong 2023, regardless of whether you're looking at the technical indicators or the fundamentals. You go back to supply and demand with gold, and you know, mines are going deeper, they're going for lower grades, the head grades are in decline, they're not replacing the mines as rapidly as they could want. And all of this is pointing towards a supply crunch. And at the same time, you've got strong demand coming from all over the world, retail investors, institutional investors, your central bankers. It's really shaping up for a great year for gold, and we're now sitting at 1921. And as often is the case, silver has crossed its you know, it tends to outperform on the way down and on the way up. So it had its golden cross probably about, let's say, 4 weeks prior to the gold. And, you know, where gold goes, so goes silver, but usually at a more significant pace. In this case, it's going up and performing quite significantly ahead of gold, and that's sort of what you expect in a more bullish market for the precious metals. Also very bullish on copper. I think that there's a lot of concerns out there that if the US economy goes into recession, that it's going to cause a lot of problems for the US for copper. And I think that what offsets that is the demand coming from the China, Southeast Asia, as they modernize everything, and the revolution in automobiles. I really think that in 2023, you're going to see the Federal Reserve not only slow down on interest rates increases like they did in the December meeting after a series of raises of 3/4 of a point, they slowed down to a half. And they also are sending out the signals that they're nearing the peak of their interest rates, somewhere between 5 and 5.5. So, you know, maybe they've got another 0.75% of a move in them, but it isn't going to be much more than that. And after that, I think that they'll stimulate. And when they stimulate, I would imagine that that will be good for copper, for industrialization, but also, you know, the power grid in the United States is in trouble. It's been that way for a long time. We see it when there's, you know, really cold snaps. It puts a lot of pressure on the aging infrastructure of the power system. And That is going to use a lot of copper. The modernization of Southeast Asia is another, and then you've got the automobile revolution to electric vehicles. All of these things need a lot of copper, and I think that's why you've seen a significant spike in the price of copper coming into 2023. It's now significantly above the 200-day moving average and the 50-day moving average, and the 50-day moving average is moving up on a slope that's very similar to the inverse of the slope that the US dollar is dropping on. So good things ahead for copper, gold, silver, other metals that are priced in the US dollar. But let's get on to some companies that could have some news out in the not too distant future. My company, where I'm the CEO, Advanced Lithium, as I've talked about in the past, we've been pretty punished because of the Mexican government talking about a national lithium company. I think that our pressure is overdone. I think that there's positive solutions to this, our lithium. We have projects in good standing. The Constitution of Mexico protects us in that the government is not allowed to retroactively change the mining laws that affect projects in good standing. Secondly, we've got protection in the US, Canada, Mexico Free Trade Agreement. But as these things are getting ironed out, I've been talking a lot lately about our Serape project up near in Sonora. It's right beside the Las Chispas mine of SilverCrest. And SilverCrest put that into commercial production in November. They're producing silver at about $6.88 a pound, an ounce, and they're processing about 700 grams per ton of silver. So that makes for a very profitable mine. They're mining epithermal veins. We've got 2 big epithermal veins on our project. One thing that we're doing right now is compiling all of the data from the past work at Serape and putting together images of the various different outcrops of the epithermal vein. 2 veins, the Serape vein, which is 5 kilometers long, the 2,000-meter Chiltepan. Chiltepan has only seen 1 drill hole, and only 200 meters of a 5,000-meter Serape vein has seen any historical drilling. And so we're compiling that, and I hope to have something to say in a news release in the not too distant future about the compilation of all the historical data. And I would point out that the Ermitaño mine, which is right beside Las Chispas, was found by First Majestic. They drilled underneath a low-grade surface outcrop of the vein and hit very high-grade gold and silver. And we're not going to reinvent the wheel. We plan on doing the same thing to show how significant our targeting will be. I'm going to try to put out a bunch of images that show all of the outcropping vein, and it's quite substantial, and most of it has never been drilled underneath. So we will plan to follow the same exploration method that First Majestic used to find their Ermitaño mine. And by the way, the Ermitaño mine is one of the it is the best performing mine that is owned by First Majestic. So we're in a very prolific mining area. We're in the same kind of rocks, the same kind of structural corridor, and we're looking for the same thing, epithermal veins. So I think stay tuned, because I'm trying to get some news out about Advanced. The next company I want to talk about is Amex. Amex Exploration is in Quebec. They've been drilling up a storm. I picked this company as a tax loss selling pick. As you can see, they're breaking out quite significantly. They came into the end of the year down here at, let's say, about a $1.65. Now they've moved up aggressively to 203. They've broken through their 50-day moving average. They're at their 200-day moving average. They've been drilling up a storm in the last half of 2022, and a bunch of those results are pending. They recently put some news out that I'm quite impressed with. They've got a cluster of orogenic gold zones on their property that are contained between two faults. As you follow those two faults to the east, those two faults come together in close proximity to where they found all of the zones. And that could be a source in an orogenic gold system for where all the mineralization is coming from. And I've recently described it as sort of like looking at a boat. You've got these two, or a ship, if you will, you've got these two structures that are kind of your starboard. I can't even remember the sides of a boat, but it looks like the sides of the boat, and they are coming. The one is dipping to the north, so what you could be seeing is the bottom of the boat, and then the bow of the boat is pointing over towards the east, and they plan on doing a bunch of holes over there. So I'm really excited about the pending news for this company. I'm also very excited about their upcoming drilling in that eastern portion of the claims where these two faults come together. And ultimately, I think they've got a tremendously powerful gold mineralizing system that's an orogenic gold system. Their key zone is the high-grade zone, where they've got tremendously good continuity of the high grade. I think they've got a mine there. I think they've also got an open pit mine at their Denise, which is sitting right beside the high-grade zone, and it's sitting right on the contact of two rock packages at where that southern fault, Perron, is located. So just a tremendously good project as far as I'm concerned. I think they're undervalued. They're coming into the new year very strongly, so they've been a good year-end tax loss selling pick for me. I think they've got plenty of catalysts to drive them through a golden cross in the next, let's say, 3-4 weeks. So stay tuned for news from that company. Another company that I recently started following in the latter part, well, not just following, but they came in as a sponsor of my website, and I interviewed their CEO, Andrew Pollard. Also made them a tax loss selling pick when they were down here. Now they've moved aggressively through their 50-day moving average, being an excellent pick for the tax loss selling picks. But why I pick those kind of companies is I try to find the ones that have plenty of catalysts to drive their stock higher as they come out of the tax loss selling season. And they recently made some news on their lithium project, that they brought in a partner that's going to advance that project. Then their key project is their Tonopah project, where they have a substantial resource of high-grade silver. The average grade is around 450 grams per ton of silver. In late part of 2022, they also announced that they drilled a spectacular hole on their Silver Cloud project that had bonanza grades of both silver and gold. And that's in an epithermal vein system where there's a bunch of epithermal vein mines around it. And so the key catalyst that I could see them coming out with is they've drilled a bunch of holes along strike to expand their resource. The footprint is pretty much doubled, and they got a lot of assay results to come out from that drilling. I also like their game plan going forward, in that they're going to follow the same pattern as SilverCrest did. If you look at the maiden resources from both companies, SilverCrest and BlackRock. The BlackRock maiden resource might be more significant. They're around the same size, but the grade is higher. And then what SilverCrest did after their maiden resources, they kept on drilling, they kept on growing the resource, and they focused in on the high-grade portions of it. And now the rest is really history for SilverCrest. They have brought their mine into commercial production in November. I'm going to talk about that company more later, but at the end of the day, they're mining 6.88 ounce at a cost of $6.88 per ounce of silver, and they're mining 700 grams per ton of silver. That makes for a cash machine of a mine, and that's why I've made them a pick, and I like what they're doing so much. But I think that BlackRock is following a similar path to success at their Tonopah project. Then they've got the Silver Cloud Bonanza epithermal vein that they recently tagged into. So more results from Tonopah. And then I think it's not too long before we start hearing about their plans to drill more at the Silver Cloud and drill around that Bonanza grades that they hit. So I think this is a very undervalued company. I call them one of my deep value picks, and also one of my tax loss selling picks that are doing very well. And yeah, stay tuned for more results from them. Paycore Minerals, big fan of Paycore because they're finding they have a high grade, well, Bonanza grade, if you really. When you look at what they have at their project near Eureka, Nevada, it's right beside the big CRD that i-80 Gold is finding. They're about 2,000 meters away on Paycore's ground. They've also found a similar CRD with high grades of zinc, lead, and silver, which are your classic sort of metals for a CRD. But then at a different time, it looks like the high-grade gold came in along the same conduit, if you will, or path of least resistance in the rock, and it's got an overprint of high-grade gold. These two companies have some of the highest metal value in situ rock in anywhere in the mining business. And so Paycore has more pending news. As you can see, their 50-day moving average is, on a very bullish slope. Back in November, it went through that 50-day moving average when they announced some of their assay results from their CRD, and it's taken them much higher. These CRDs, they tend not to be small, and they tend to be high grade. And when you look at CRD apples to apples, this is some of the highest grade CRDs you're going to find anywhere on the planet. Those make for very profitable mines. They also make for very profitable for the shareholder takeovers. If you look at Arizona Mining, which I started covering in my reports when they were 50 cents a share, they also ultimately were bought out at several multiples of that because they found a CRD in Arizona. And quite significantly, what Paycore and i-80 Gold are finding in their CRDs are quite significantly higher grade. So this is a special situation with Paycore, and I could see them coming out with news at any time. An interview that I did not too long ago was with the chairman of Firefox. And Firefox was also a tax loss selling pick that has come up quite dramatically from where they were trading at in late December. Why I like this company is that they are in Finland. They're near where there's been some massive success in Finland. They've also had their own success in Finland. They recently completed in the last quarter of 2022 a drill program. Those assay results are pending. I think that they could come out at any time right now. This company has a very modest valuation when you consider how much ground that they have in Finland, which is an emerging significant gold mining jurisdiction. And they've got a big land package. They're doing lots of drilling. They've got lots of targets. Target-rich package of properties in close proximity to important discoveries and future mines. And I really like what I see in Firefox, and their assay results are pending, and I could see those coming out at any time now. Fireweed Zinc, I did a interview with their chairman, or I mean their CEO, sorry. And what we talked about was that a few things. Back here, they announced a pretty spectacular drill hole, the best that they have ever drilled on their property. And what excites me about that project is they've got these horizons where you're finding high-grade zinc in those horizons. And as you move more towards the key structure, they had their best hole ever as they got close to that key structure. And it looks like what's happened is a VMS has driven the mineralization into the horizons. Think of it like layers of a cake. So you've got the plumbing system and the heat engine that's driven that zinc out into a very large area of high grade, which is indicative of a very powerful mineralizing system. And that's what they look like they hit recently. And after they announced that, they also announced that the Lundin family mining royalty or dynasty, if you will, put a bunch of money into the company. That's sort of your good housekeeping seal of approval. This family knows what mines look like and have been building mines for decades. It's no wonder that they have decided to make a significant investment into Fireweed Zinc. And I would also point out that they've only released a small portion of their assay results from the drilling that they did in the summer and fall. And so there's a lot of pending news for this company. They're another one that I think could make news at any point in time. The next company up is Galantas Gold. I'm a big fan of Galantas because they've got an orogenic gold system in Ireland. What really excites me about that orogenic gold system is most of the drilling has been done on the Kearney and the Joshua vein. And they found a lot of widespread high-grade gold mineralization. They've also found a network of dilation zones. And that's where the rock opens up and allows the gold-bearing fluids to kind of pool up. And important is that that network and the other high-grade gold mineralization will help them to go deeper into the orogenic gold system. And deep is the key important thing in these orogenic gold systems. They're associated with big cracks in the earth, and that go down. They're crustal cracks in the earth that go down 2, 3, 4, 5,000 meters. And that works as the conduit for the gold-bearing fluids to make their way up to surface. Their drilling has been limited to probably about only the first 200 meters in those two veins. And those two veins in close proximity to them are other veins. So you have a tightly packed area of orogenic gold zones. And those series are in close proximity to one of these big cracks in the earth. I think what's going to happen is the dilation zones and the mineralization will lead them deeper, And as they get deeper, I think that all of those zones will coalesce into one, and it very well could be coming off of that big crack that's to the immediate south of the series of zones. So I'm a big fan of orogenic gold systems because of the success that you saw at the Fosterville mine when Kirkland Lake started mining the Swan Zone. It made them one of the lowest cost producers of gold in the business. It drove their stock dramatically higher, making it one of the best performing gold stocks that ultimately led to them being a takeover. And why that happens is these are cash machines. You've got very low cost of mining it and very high grades. That makes for huge margins that generate a lot of free cash flow. And that's a wonderful situation to be in. And that's the main reason why I follow orogenic gold systems so closely. And Galantis has, I think, a significant amount of news to come out about their drilling and efforts at their orogenic gold system. And I think they have a very modest valuation and with the catalyst to move their stock higher. All right, the next company I'm going to talk about is, I started covering Grande Portage. I used to cover them, and I've started covering them again recently because this was one of my deep value picks in the outlook or the year in review report in 2023. And why I picked it as a deep value pick is because if you look at the value that they're getting in market valuation relative to the asset, it's significantly lower than what you see in a more bullish market for gold. So the asset that they have is very undervalued. It's about a 1.2 million ounce gold deposit with an average grade of a little better than 10 grams per ton of gold. Those are the kind of things that make for very profitable gold mines. And they've got a bunch of pending results that could come out at any time as well. I'm working to get their CEO on an interview in the not too distant future. And so Grande Portage, I really like the way it's broken out in late 2022. It's now trading right in the middle of its 50-day and 200-day moving averages. And I think it has the catalysts to go through a golden cross in the next 3 weeks or so, and then continue to go much higher. I just think that, you know, when you can buy gold in the ground for so cheap, and you're in a bull market for gold, that it won't take very long before you start seeing a more reasonable value for what they own in the ground. And if that were to happen, you know, the stock would be much higher than it is right now. Plus, they've got all this pending news, so I think they've got plenty of catalysts coming up. HighGold was one of the companies that I picked in my tax loss selling picks as well. And as you can see, they're up significantly from their end of 2022 price. They've broken through the 50-day moving average. They've broken through the 200-day moving average. Their 50-day moving average is more bullish. In addition to picking them as a tax loss selling pick, I also put them in the category of deep value plays. If you, again, just like what I talked about with Grande Portage, if you look at the size of the deposit, they have a resource of about better than 1 million ounces at a grade of about 9.25 grams per ton of gold. Those make for very high margin mines. I think they've ultimately got a mine there, and I think they could grow that resource to well over 2 million ounces of gold. The reason that I say that is if you look at the zone, the JT deposit zone, it seems as they go deeper that it's spreading out quite substantially. and it's still wide open at depth. And there's a second zone that's in close proximity. I got a feeling that as you go deeper, those two zones come together into one zone. So I think they've got a runway to get well over 2 million ounces of gold. But with the resource that they have right now on JT deposit alone makes them a deep value play, because their gold in the ground is trading at a discount to a reasonable price for ounces in the ground in a bull market for gold. I think we're in a bull market for gold, so this is a deep value play that's performing very well as one of my tax loss selling picks. And in addition to their JT deposit, about 4,000 meters away in the same kind of rock as the JT deposit, they found another zone they're calling Ellis. And Ellis started out by having just off the charts high grades, some of the best grades in any drill hole anywhere in the business. Then they drilled around it, and it's showing good continuity, and it's wide open. So I think that Ellis is going to be an important resource of the future. And what makes it really exciting at Ellis is that zone comes right to the surface. So you could open pit mine it, and it's got orders of magnitude higher than the average open pit mine globally for all the mining sector. So that could be a cash machine of a mine as well. And they got plenty of other targets. They recently put out a letter to their shareholders where they're talking about some of their other assets that they're looking at monetizing. They've got a good group of assets outside of this JT project, Johnson Tract project. And I think that things are going to be very good for 2023 for HighGold. Okay, a chronic news company that puts out news on a regular basis is i-80 Gold. Just a exceptional performer in the companies that are sponsors of my shows. Very fortunate to get you and Downey on, sometimes within hours of them putting out news or within a day or two. Pretty proud of the fact that, you know, the management of almost $1 billion company feels that it's important to come on my Rocks and Stocks news shows. Here they announced just a blockbuster hole from their CRD that, you know, you're looking at $5,000 or more per ton of rock. That they announced, just spectacular grades of zinc, lead, silver, and bonanza gold overprinting a CRD. And that drove them through a golden cross in early December, trading aggressively above its 200-day moving average and 50-day moving average. Look at the slope on that, how aggressively it's moved up. And these guys are always putting out good news. So I think you can be pretty certain probably within the next week or two that they could have more news out. And with what they're drilling on, they've got 3 world-class projects. 2 of them are on their Ruby Hill project near Eureka, Nevada. One's this CRD with the bonanza gold overprinting it, but then right to the over to the west of the Archimedes pit, the CRD is to the south, and to the west, they've got what looks like a world-class gold deposit on their hands. And then at Granite Creek, they also have what looks like a world-class gold project on their hands. So I've never seen a company at this stage of their growth that had 3 world-class projects that not only are they drilling aggressively and exploring aggressively and putting out lots of great news, but they're also working towards simultaneously developing those into near-term mines. That combination I think will make them a $5 billion plus company, and they currently trade at sub 1 billion. So for the investor out there that wants a have a gold company in their portfolio with not a lot of downside risk, but a lot of upside potential, i-80 Gold is for you. And I like that story a lot. On the copper front and other base metals is my #1 pick in the base metal category, which is 9 Mile Metals. They have a project or projects in the Bathurst mining camp, which is one of the top 3 mining camps in the world for VMS mines. Real elephant country, and they've drilled into 2 that are 20 kilometers apart sulfide occurrences. The one that caused this action is a high-grade lens of massive sulfides that contained up to 10% copper, just off the charts kind of stuff. And as we speak, they're drilling to find the source of where that came from. When you get a 10-meter wide lens that comes right to surface, so you're looking at the furthest extension of the mineralizing system, it's very exciting to think of what the source of that could look like. I think it's got the potential to be big and extremely high grade. And I'm looking forward to them drilling into it, and they're drilling at it right now. So stay tuned for drilling results from there. 20 kilometers away, they found another occurrence of massive sulfides, and they got a second project that they need to look for the source of where those came from. And in these volcanogenic massive sulfide deposits, those zones don't come from outer space. They come from deeper through volcanoes that bring them up to the surface. And when you're looking at what's at the surface, you're looking at the furthest extent from the mineralizing heat engine and the system that brought that all towards the surface. So what you see at surface, when you get the kind of grades that they're getting at both California Lake and at their 9 Mile Brook project, speaks volumes about the potential of what the sources of those massive sulfide occurrences will look like. And even if you look at the drill core, it is loaded up with massive sulfides. So I think they both have powerful VMS systems that have deposited the stuff near surface, and can't wait for them to find the sources of both their California Lake and their extreme high-grade 9 Mile Brook lens. I also like the fact that if you look at the geological rock packages, right at a key package, it hinges, and that hinge is right beside where they found the lens. This is a perfect place to be looking for the source of that lens. And who knows, they could tag into that at any time now and put news out about it, because they're drilling right now. So that's another company with a bunch of pending news. Origin Royalties is an exciting company to me, because they have recently made the transition from having a bunch of projects with royalties on them, that one of them has now become a mine. That's the Ermitaño mine, right beside Las Chispas in Sonora. And that's a cash machine, very high grade, very low cost of production. And Origin owns a 2% royalty on that. And they're getting the checks regularly now, and they're quite significant, which is going to help their bottom line. It also puts them at the transition to now they've got cash flowing royalties. They also own a 1% royalty on the Silicon project that's Anglo Gold is Anglo Ashanti Gold, whatever they're called these days, major mining company, is developing and are drilling, and they've already put out their maiden resource with 3.4 million ounces of gold in the maiden resource. They have multiple drill rigs on that property. They're expanding it dramatically. It looks like they have more than one important zone on there. And it certainly looks like that will be a future cash flowing royalty for Origin Royalties. And that's the reason that I pick them. They're the only royalty company that I pick. And why I like them is in the life cycle of a royalty company, they're now at a crucial point where their royalties are now cash flow. Their royalty on Ermitaño is now a cash flowing royalty. And they've got a pipeline of projects that could be future cash flowing royalties, including a really big one in Nevada that's, as I said, has a maiden resource of 3.4 million ounces of gold in it. So this is an exciting royalty company. It's run by a guy I know very well, Paddy Nicol. I recently did an interview with him that you can find on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News. He and I worked together in the past for a large geological consulting firm. His uncle, who's sadly no longer with us, was an important mentor for both Paddy and I when it comes to geology. And Paddy's doing a great job with his Origin Royalties. And I think that they're at an exciting juncture for the company. As you can see, in December, they went through a golden cross. The slope of the 50-day moving average is very bullish. Even the 200-day moving average is now starting to trend upwards. So I think you've got that classic sort of action where you see the 50-day move much higher, the 200-day move much higher, and the 50-day stay significantly above the 200-day. And I think that could be throughout 2023. So if you like royalty companies, Origin Royalties is one for you. Okay, getting back to SilverCrest. I've never had the opportunity to interview the company, but I still certainly would like to, because I think that they're at a very exciting juncture for a company that had huge exploration success when they found their Las Chispas mine in Sonora. Then they had a development discount window. It wasn't a severe one because of the metrics, the economic metrics of the mine. But in November, in the first week of November, they announced full commercial production. And as you can see, the stock blasted off. It hit the 200-day moving average, fell back to the 50-day moving average. Now it's above the 200-day moving average, and the 50-day moving average is in a very bullish path to a golden cross, probably within a week or two. And ultimately, this is a multi-year mine that is mining silver at about $6.88 an ounce, and yet they're producing the at about 700 grams per ton. That makes for a cash machine, and for investors that want exposure to a silver and gold company that is transitioning to a mining company with a cash machine of a mine, SilverCrest is for you. And the key news that I foresee coming out of SilverCrest is, as they start getting 1 or 2 quarters into the production, commercial production at Las Chispas, that gives the institutional number crunchers some data for them to go on. You know, they tend to want to see the data before they get excited, and that gives investors an opportunity to make money before the big institutions get super aggressive. And I think they will get super aggressive. As I said, the stock is heading towards a golden cross in the next week to 2 weeks, and they're getting closer and closer to start putting out quarterly reports based on their full commercial production. So they're at a very important juncture in their corporate life, and I think that coming out of that juncture is going to be very bullish for the company, because they have such a low cost and high grade mine that they're going to make nothing but money off of. I think that that's going to make them a significant outperformer compared to other mining companies. So I'm a big fan of SilverCrest, and I think for the investor that wants less risk and yet should see good performance from a corporate sense, as well as things get more bullish for gold and silver, SilverCrest is for you. All right, the next company I'm going to talk about is Timberline. Timberline has been drilling in the last quarter of 2022 on a resource expansion project for a gold resource that they have in around Eureka, Nevada. And what really excites me about that resource is that as they're drilling, it's getting bigger. But what's most important, as it gets bigger to the east, it gets very close to a massively big geophysical anomaly. And in these gold systems, they have to have a heat source that brings those metals bearing, gold bearing fluids into the near surface resource. The likeliest suspect for that is this big geophysical anomaly. Now, other indicators that that's what's happening is if you look at the various different rock packages, they're all pointing towards that geophysical anomaly. Then you look at the structures that the gold will follow as a path of least resistance to then make its way into those rocks. It's all pointing towards that big geophysical anomaly. I think there's a pretty good chance that in 2023, their drilling will lead them to that big geophysical anomaly. So they have a growing resource of gold and a big geophysical anomaly. They've got a large land package in an exciting portion of Nevada near Eureka, the town of Eureka. They've got a rich group of assets, targets. There's been a lot of historical mining for CRDs on their property. So I think they got great things ahead of them. As you can see, the 50-day moving average has been moving up. They have a bunch of assay results pending that I think have the potential to see that 50-day moving average move up much more significantly and lead to a golden cross. So that's why I like Timberline. Stay tuned. I think they could have news out at any time now. They did a bunch of drilling in late 2022, and they should have news out at any time now. So I follow that company very closely because they're a sponsor of my website. And they're a good company for you to, you can do your homework by going to my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News and see the interviews that I did with their management. And I think you'll be impressed. I certainly am. All right. Another company, Walker River Resources, they're always the last company I talk about because I usually talk about companies in alphabetical order. Certainly not the saving the least for the last, if you will, because they've got a very exciting project in Nevada. What makes it exciting is that the historical mining and their own drilling in the Lapon Mountain has resulted in a wide zone of mineralization. If you sort of go from side to side in the mountain, you're looking at widespread high-grade gold mineralization over about a 600 meters. And then if you go to the top of the mountain to the bottom of the mountain, you're looking at about another 800 meters. And in that area, they've had widespread gold mineralization in their drilling. It also has a network of structures, which are your conduits or your path of least resistance that enables the gold-bearing fluids to make their way up into the mountain. And there's also a big zone of alteration in that network, in that area that I just described. And when those metals, gold-bearing fluids interact with the country rock, they chemically alter that country rock. So in their case, you can see a very large alteration zone. And all of this points towards a very powerful gold mineralizing system. Other evidence that you're looking at a powerful gold mineralizing system is that they drilled into granites, and in the granites, they even hit high-grade gold. So that's indicative of a powerful system. The widespread high-grade gold mineralization, the structural network, and the alteration package. But it doesn't stop there, because if you follow that down the mountain, you come to the Lapon Canyon, which is an important structure. And you've got cross-cutting structures right at that big one. And then you go to the other side of Lapon Canyon, and there's another mountain with another network of faulting and a big alteration package. So it looks like these two things are associated and are all indicative of a very powerful and big high-grade gold mineralizing system. And that's why I'm so bullish on gold and or Walker River. And as you can see, the market is too, because what got the optimism going is they completed 2 drill campaigns, one at the Lapon Mountain and one at the Pikes Peak, which looks like it's a porphyry, that it could be the heat engine that brought that gold mineralization along the faults or the paths of least resistance, then altered all that rock and brought the widespread high-grade gold mineralization into that system. And as you can see here, the stock broke out through the 50-day moving average in December. It's now trading aggressively above its 200-day and 50-day. The 50-day is on a very bullish trajectory, and they're only 2 or 3 days away from a golden cross, and they've got a bunch of assays pending. So I'm really looking forward to them putting out their news on that drilling that they've done at both Pikes Peak and the Lapon Mountain. So they're another company with pending news. Okay, so now I want to talk about some upcoming interviews that I'm doing. A new sponsor of my website or shows is a company called Dynasty Gold. Dynasty recently had some exceptionally good results out from drilling. As you can see, it blasted off here and drove their 50-day almost vertical, and was so substantial that it drove their 200-day moving average up as well. I think they're only a few days away from a golden cross. And as a new sponsor, it gives me an opportunity to interview their management, which I expect to do probably Tuesday or Wednesday. And we'll dig deeper into the news release and sort of what they're going to work on to keep the project going forward. But they hit some bonanza grade stuff that looks quite exciting. And it's very early days, and I'm looking forward to talking to their key geological expert, because he's was inducted into the Canadian Mining Hall of Fame in 2009. And there's other very talented rock people with the company as well. So I think they've got something real special in the making here. And I want to dig deeper into the news and talk about what their plans are for the future. Hope to be doing that on Tuesday or Wednesday. Another one that I'm looking at talking to on Tuesday or Wednesday, or sorry, possibly even on Monday, is Goliath. Goliath Resources has a very exciting project, but you can't, it's quite surprising that they put what I think is great news out and the stock got punished for it. I think that the market doesn't really realize how significant what they've reported is, or even you look at all the drilling that they've done and how that looks like they've got a stacked series of zones that all are pointing towards key structural cracks in the earth that allow those fluids to make their way up. I think they've got a multi-million ounce project on their hands here, and the market doesn't seem to like the recent news, but I sure do. So I reached out to management, and it looks like early in the week we're going to have an interview. I'm working on getting an interview together with HighGold in the not too distant future, hopefully this week coming up. So that's another one. And then I'm going to be a bit of a tease because I'm working on a couple of new sponsors for the shows, and they recently had good news out. I want to get them signed up as sponsors and then start doing a series of interviews because I think that they are very undervalued. So those are some teases for you of upcoming shows. The Dynasty is not a tease. Goliath is not a tease. HighGold is not a tease. I'm quite confident that you'll see interviews out for those companies next week. Stay tuned for news from the other companies, because if the other companies put news out, I'll be on them to come on the show and dig deeper into that news. I'm going to go off screen share here and say that, you know, I'm seeing some really good things lining up for a bull market in gold. And another thing that I would like to emphasize is that we're coming out of a time period that reminds me of the year 2000, where gold stocks and other metal stocks were trading at historic low valuations. And we got to that point again in 2022. And then in 2021, after those stocks were so oversold, it started the over a decade-long bull market. And I see all the same dynamics lining up for the same thing to happen right now. You've got the 2022 saw gold stocks and other metal stocks trading at historic lows. And that was across the board, whether you were talking about the big major mining companies, the middle tiers, or the juniors, relative to what they have in the ground. And so you've got you're coming out of a very beaten down market, and now you've got gold and other metals that are starting to move up quite aggressively. And the fundamental dynamics are very similar to what caused the 2001 to around 2012 bull market in metals. And so it's no coincidence. Why I keep talking about the US dollar trend is because in 2000, you saw the same thing. The US dollar was very strong. Metals prices were very low. The mining companies were even lower. Then you saw some fundamental changes that put the US dollar under pressure, and the price of metals made them bullish. And they were coming from such a low base that those stocks went up and made lots of people lots of money over a long period of time. And I really think that we're in a similar market right now. Okay, so as always, my shows are for research purposes only. It's important for you to speak with your financial advisors before making any investment decisions. Several of the companies I talked about today are sponsors of my shows. I'll include that information in the description below this video. But almost all of them I've done interviews with that you can find on my YouTube channel at Rocks and Stocks News. I've also been making a big effort in the last few months to launch my site at Substack. It's called rocksandstocks.substack.com. You can find a bunch of commentary and shows that I've done on there as well. Then go to the company's websites, check out their corporate presentations, check out their news releases, do your homework. And the main reason why I always advise people to do their homework is because it's important for you to understand the companies you're investing in and why you're investing in them. And the reason for that is you'll make more logical investment decisions, and you won't be swayed by the day-to-day fluctuations in the stock prices and trade emotionally. And that's a recipe for success. The big winners in this mining sector have always been those that think logically, trade without emotion, buy things when they're cheap, and recognize value when it's not being recognized, and wait until you get more catalysts from the specific companies and a stronger market for the metals that they're involved in. And I think that's where we are right now. So on that note, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.